Now that we're at around the halfway mark, most teams are at 40 or a little bit over 40 games. A couple teams at 42. It's a good time to look at numbers and, I guess, New Year's resolutions. So if you're on these teams, what do you need to fix going into 2020? Some teams, a couple of teams, I can't really find much of anything, and some I can't find anything at all. Now, I did this in order of standings again, so East and West, all that wonderful stuff. Standings are current as of now. I used the standings according to Sportsnet. Not that it matters. The playoffs don't start tomorrow anyways, but it's still kind of fun to look at. So Boston, with 57 points currently, the number that I looked at is they won 1 out of 9 between December 5th and 21st. A time period that it seems like everybody got men in blacked over and everybody just forgets all about it. They only won 1 out of 9. So they can't be doing that again. They seem to be coming out of that. But yeah, for Boston, they have to make sure that they continue on this same path. Toronto, 47 points. The concerning number with them for me is that they have 3.23 goals against per game. That's 23rd in the NHL. Defense or goaltending, and again, this comes down to, well, their backup wasn't performing well, all this other stuff. They do have a problem on their blue line, and it does need to be addressed. And it kind of feels to me like Dubas and the Maple Leafs organization are kind of patching it together, and it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I don't know, that mentality could lead to another first-round loss. Third place in the division right now is Florida. They have 45 points, so they're only 2 behind Toronto. But they have the same problem. They're allowing 3.34 goals per game. That's 28th in the National Hockey League. When they signed Bobrovsky, I don't think they envisioned being 28th in goals against per game. You signed Bobrovsky because you envisioned getting better defensively, not worse. And I'm trying to remember where they finished in goals against last year. I don't know. It was probably around 28th. It just feels like their defense just isn't good enough on any given night. So we'll see if they continue down that path. The Capitals, they have 59 points. There's not a whole lot to pick at with them. I can look and say, well, they've got 2.9 goals against per game, which is 11th in the NHL. If you're going to be an elite team, if you're going to win a Stanley Cup, you probably need to be top 10 in goals against per game. But again, they're close. So there's really not a whole lot with the Capitals for me to pick apart. For the Islanders, they're scoring 2.89 goals per game. That's 19th overall in the National Hockey League. They do need to score more goals. I know their goals against is good. Their special teams, everything seems to be pretty good. But they do need some more goals. I think if they could add a goal scorer, I think they should look at it. With 50 points, so the Islanders have 51, Capitals 59. With 50 points is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The number that stands out to me with them, and I know this is getting better, 19.3% on the penalty kill, which is 15th. Part of the reason I wanted to highlight that is simple. When Sid gets back, that's going to get better. So, and when they have Schultz back, that should improve it as well. They're going through this season where it's just been injuries all over the place. Look out when they get healthy, because that's the only number I could pull that I thought, that kind of shows something. Philadelphia, they are scoring 3.08 goals per game, which is 15th. Again, kind of drawing at straws with this one because their goals against has been good. And you may look at Philadelphia and go, well, their goaltending has probably not been that great. No, Hart and Elliott have both been pretty solid, and their defense in general has been pretty good. So, Philadelphia, they are a dark horse in the East. Carolina, with 48 points, I couldn't find a problem with Carolina. I looked. There's nothing, so they just get a check mark. Carolina Hurricanes, they're in pretty good shape right now. I know their record has them down as the number 2 wild card, but look at this, 48 points. That would be good for second in the Atlantic. So it's the division that they're in. 48 points would have them tied with Vegas for first in the Pacific. So it's the division they're in. So if you look at the standings right now, you go, gee, the Metro seems to be really, really good. Yeah, it is. The Metro is supremely good. You basically have to be a first-place team in the Pacific to make the playoffs in the Metro division. So that's ridiculous. Tampa, 44 points, 1 behind Florida. What stands out with them? A penalty kill at 80.3%, which is 18th. Goals against at 3.13, which is 21st. So allowing fewer goals would seem to be their task, and it's been a task they've had for most of the season. But again, Our expectations for them coming into this season may just have been too high. New York Rangers with 42 points. They're allowing 3.24 goals per game, which is 24th in the NHL. They need to bring that down. I don't think that's the goaltending either, so that's a defensive issue. 18.8% power play, which is 17th. Could probably stand to bring that up a little bit. Columbus with 42 points. Their power plays at 16.9%, 22nd overall in the NHL. They do need to improve that. And their goals for at 2.59 goals per game is 27th in the NHL. They don't have a lot of that top-end talent. And right now with the injuries they're dealing with, some of that top-end talent is out. Montreal also with 42 points. They are allowing a shockingly high 3.26 goals per game, which is 25th in the NHL. With Carey Price, you'd figure you have to be in the top half, and they're not. And Carey Price hasn't been Carey Price for large portions of this season. Their penalty kill at 76.4% is also 25th. Your goaltender can often be your best penalty killer. He can also be the one that's causing issues with your penalty kill as well. I'm not saying that's the issue here. I'm just saying that can happen. So before people go on hating me for Carey Price speak in this video, I'm not saying anything bad about Carey Price. It's just surprising that when you look at it, the offense is pretty good for Montreal. It's the defense that's letting them down. Buffalo with 41 points. Both of their special teams are poor. 74.3% on the penalty kill, which is 28th. 18.2% on the power play, which is 20th. And it's more shocking, that power play number, because it was fantastic for them through the first couple of weeks of the season. So it's been ice cold for large portions since then. 37 points for Ottawa. Yeah, they're only 4 points behind Buffalo. That's so strange. 11.4% on a power play that sucks. It's 31st in the NHL. It is dug in as 31st in the NHL. It had started showing signs of life over the last couple of weeks. We don't know if that's going to last, but it's strange to see. Their goals against actually isn't too bad. 3.21 goals against per game, which is 22nd. Their goals for, I think, is 21st. Honestly, it is surprising how solid their overall numbers are. It's the power play that stands out as something that has cost them games this year. New Jersey with 32 points, so they're 5 behind Ottawa. 2.58 goals for per game, 3.47 goals against per game. I don't need to put down the rankings. That's not good enough. 14.6% power play, 29th overall in the NHL. So if it's a New Jersey stat, it's probably not very good. Penalty kill's not bad. Power play is. Goals for, goals against, both are poor. You can allow about a goal more per game than you get. That's not a recipe for success. With 21 points, the abysmal Detroit Red Wings, who are last in goals for, were 2.17 per game. Last in goals against at 3.90 against per game. And their penalty kill, 72.2%. That is the worst in the National Hockey League. So you've kind of got to pick them with Detroit when it comes to which stat is costing them games right now. It's kind of a combination of everything. Now, looking at the Western Conference, St. Louis with 58 points and a check mark. They're 1 point behind the Capitals for first overall. They've won 8 in a row. There isn't a number that I could pull from them that has been poor. Nothing. St. Louis is just fantastic. Colorado, 50 points. What stands out with them is special teams. 18.2% on the power play, which is 19th. 79.8% on the penalty kill, which is 20th. Again, if they want to be a contending team, probably going to need to bring their special teams up. 5-on-5, it's great. Special teams, not as much. Now, Dallas, I should say, 48 points for them. Again, they would be tied for first in the Pacific, but because they're in the Central, they're third. 16.5% power play. It sucks. 23rd overall. It had been getting better, and now it seems to be going back to where it was. 2.63 goals for per game, which is 26th overall in the NHL. So when I talk about Dallas's offense, and then people say, hey, they've had X amount of goals in their last 3 games, 4 games, and they won't bring it up. But overall, the numbers have still been poor this year, and it's not sustained. It's not that there's been some sustained excellence for 10, 12 games when it comes to that offense. They'll have 3 or 4 good games, and then it just falls apart again. Last night's game against Arizona, they had both the bad and the good. The first and second period, nothing. Third period, 4 goals. Bewildering. 48 points for Vegas. That's good enough to be first. What stands out with them? they're middle of the road in most categories. They've got a pretty good special teams record. 3.00 goals for 16th. They could probably stand to score a little bit more, allow a little bit less. If you're a Vegas fan, this isn't rocket science that I'm passing along here. It's not some great wisdom that somebody's going to impart to their great-great-great-great-grandchildren somewhere down the road. But, and I don't mean that one person to their great-great-great-great-grandchildren, because people don't live that long, unless they have kids when they're really young. Anyways, Vegas could stand to pick up a couple of things, but in general, they're playing pretty well, especially right now. Vancouver, 46 points, 2.95 goals against per game. That's 14th. They could bring that. They need to bring that down if they're going to sustain this. Their offense is at a crazy clip right now. Their offense, honestly, I could almost put it on the board as being probably a little bit too high right now. It feels like it's a little bit too high. But overall, the numbers for Vancouver are good. Their special teams are excellent. So I don't have anything to complain about with Vancouver. You might want to write that down. It might be a first. The whole time this channel's been around. That being said, I haven't really complained about Vancouver that much. Have I been hard on them? Yes. Complained about them? Not really. No. Arizona, 46 points. Their goals for needs some work. 2.68 goals for per game, which is 23rd overall. It is not news that Arizona struggles to score goals. It is kind of newsworthy that they struggle to score goals after the Taylor Hall trade as well. So that's where the news comes in, and that's where I am telling you, people are going to be tired of hearing about it pretty quick, but it is news if Arizona still struggles to score after the Taylor Hall deal. 45 points for Winnipeg. They have a 72.3% penalty kill, which is 30th. And I know that Winnipeg doesn't take a ton of penalties. I know that's the thing, but still, you need to be better on the penalty kill. You absolutely have to be. And for Winnipeg, it does feel like it costs them. Where it costs you is when you know that your penalty kill isn't very good, you may not go in and make that check. You may not make that stick check. You may be worried about taking a penalty and allowing a goal. Makes the team play a little more timid. Sort of like when a team has a bad power play like Ottawa. If you're against Ottawa, you're not worried about taking a penalty because you know they're likely not going to score. So in a situation where you're going, do I interfere with this guy or do I let him go and potentially risk a goal? You go, nah, forget it. I'll go ahead and interfere and forget about it. We're not going to allow a goal anyway. So that's how it kind of changes the game. That's where special teams come in. Also with 45 points, the Calgary Flames. What stands out to me is they're only scoring 2.63 goals per game. That's 25th. The same amount of goals per game as Dallas. They're just percentage points above Dallas. But, wow. I don't know how Calgary can be this bad offensively for this long. Last year they were dynamic, and this year it's mostly the same players, and it's not working. And if people want to say, well, it's James Neal. James Neal isn't working for Edmonton either since the first, I'll say, 2 or 3 weeks of the year. Because Edmonton's sitting outside of a playoff spot. They're scoring 2.83 goals per game, which is 20th. So both Alberta teams are looking at, offensive numbers that just aren't where you need them to be. What really stands out with Edmonton's number 2, because you can look at 20th and say, well, they're not too far below middle of the pack. Right. And that's with Draisaitl and McDavid scoring at 120-point paces this year. And McDavid and Draisaitl have fallen off a bit lately too, but you have to. Nobody's going to score 160 points in today's NHL. So, they're falling off to only 120-point pace, which is still pretty darn good. And the fact that with those two guys both scoring that amount, you're still 20th, that's a problem. Minnesota, there's a few problems here. 3.30 goals against. That makes them 27th when it comes to goals against per game, which is kind of a little bit surprising. Their offense hasn't been a problem, which is also a bit surprising. 17.5% power play, which is 21st. A 78% penalty kill, which is 24th. Special teams are costing them, and that goals against has got to come down. If you're a Minnesota fan and you're excited about the second half of the season, I get it. But they've got to change some of those numbers. Nashville, 42 points right now. Frustratingly, 3 points out of the playoffs. 15.9% power play, which is 25th. 75.6% penalty kill, which is 27th. You can't have a bad power play, a bad penalty kill, and hope to do anything if you make the playoffs. You can't have both. because in the playoffs, goals are at a very, very they're rare for the most part in the playoffs, especially early on. I'll get there. I will. At a premium. Goals are at a premium. There it is. I just had to grab the word from right there. It's right there, at a premium. So that's a problem. And then when their goals against is at 3.29 per game, which is 26th overall, that's a giant ouch if you're a Nashville fan. And considering Rinne and Saros are supposed to be one of the best tandems in the league, that 26th is bewildering. Now, Chicago with 40 points, their power play 15.1%, which is 26th overall. Their goals for 2.77, 22nd. And much like Edmonton, when you've got Patrick Kane scoring as well as he is for Chicago, and he's been an absolute machine for the last month and a half, 2 months, the fact that your power play and your overall offense is still kind of looking anemic, at the very least below medium, like below the midway mark of the league, that's a problem. So for Chicago, there are some problems here. Anaheim with 37 points. Where do you start? Well, you start with the offense that's not there. 2.51 goals for per game is 30th in the National Hockey League. And 14.8% power play is 27th. So Anaheim, it's all about the offense they don't have, that they wish they had, that they think is coming soon. And guys like Steele and Jones, once they start hitting their stride at the National Hockey League level, they just haven't hit that yet. So we'll see whether or not that's upcoming. San Jose with 37 points as well. What's stunning with them is pretty much the same thing. Their power play is at 14.7%, which is 28th. Their goals for per game is 2.67, which is 24th. So San Jose's having much the same problem as Anaheim, even though they signed Erik Karlsson to that huge contract. And they have a lot of guys getting paid a lot of money, and the results just don't justify it right now. It's just not there. So for the San Jose Sharks, it is a nightmare right now offensively. I didn't even get into the defense because the defensive numbers aren't horrible. It's the offense that really stands out because we had counted on those goals for them this year. LA with 36 points, and their problem is offense because they're in California. This is a California problem now. 2.54 goals for per game, that's 29th. So offensively, you've got 24th, 30th, and 29th there. Power play 12.6%, which is 30th. Only better than Ottawa. Their power plays mostly sucked. That is 30th. And so power plays, you have 28th, or 27th, 28th, and 30th, all in California. Absolutely insane. And yet, of the three California teams, LA might be the one that's playing the best hockey right now, but it's faint praise. It is really, really odd looking at these teams and realizing all three of them could finish below Ottawa in the standings. That is possible. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think teams need to do in order to fix these items going into the new year. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and I just thought this would be a fun thing to do 2 days before New Year's Day. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.